In this episode, we interview the managing director of one of the largest bookkeeping companies in New Zealand. We focus on how to recruit and retain good people, how to systemize operations so that you're focusing on the business, not just working in it.
The bane of everyone's existence is technology, I find. You're trying to, you got these processes, they're redundant, you're doing them over and over again. What was it like before the system though? Like you obviously you've changed things, but what inspired you to make things more streamlined?
Um, well, I guess you've got to go right back to the beginning. So we've been around about 9 years, and we, what I guess my vision was always to have a like our focus is around doing a really good job in bookkeeping, right? Because we figure you don't get far if you're going to do a bad job. So that's always the main focus is making sure that we've got good bookkeepers that do a good job in regard to they know their debits from their credits, they know the basic bookkeeping applications, and they can do a good job, and we can support them and train them and improve that for them, right? But so. But the thing from my perspective was, well, yes, we're going to do a good job, but I wanted to be able to scale the business and be able to bring on more clients. And how are we going to do that when we're dealing with, because in the beginning it was like me and Rosie, right? And so how are we going to do that when we've got, 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, right? And so we always knew that we needed to have some pretty good systems and processes in place from behind all that, so that when a new client came on board, boom, we could plug them into that system, and they're off to the races. So so we put in a lot of different things in the beginning, and I guess because we're because we're a small business, we can make decisions pretty quickly, and so we put all these systems in place. And when I say different systems, we had a system for the team, the bookkeeping team, to keep notes on all the jobs and the clients and all that sort of stuff, right? And then we had another one where we kept all our secure, really important documentation more for the business, for TBO. And then we had a different thing that looked after our internet security, right? And so we had all these different applications. And so over the first sort of 5, 6, 7 years, we had everything in place, but the problem was it wasn't all talking to one another. And one thing we didn't have is we didn't have a CRM. And so as the business grew and we got more and more clients, as a salesperson, I really needed a CRM. And so that was sort of the next step. And we came across a CRM system called Zoho that we use now, and we implemented that about a year ago. And that's got it's a bit like Xero. It's got a whole lot of different apps that plug into it. And so you can add in like an HR app for looking after all your staff. You can add in a recruitment app for when you're doing a recruitment process. You can add in a training app for training and all this sort of stuff. And you've obviously got the CRM as the basis. And so we now have got rid of most of our other apps that we used to use, and we've got this overall app with Zoho that really improves our efficiency. Because what we were finding when you're dealing with all these different apps, you're going into one and you're coming out of it and going into another one. This one, everything's in one place. And so that really helped us. And it's only been in a year, but already we're seeing the efficiencies of that. And the other big thing that we've done just in the last 12 months is make sure that our internet security is sort of, I guess, gold standard in regard to, because we're getting a lot of clients asking, how do you protect my information and how you access that information and all the rest of it? So we've got an app that looks after all our internet security, how we log into things, keeps everything nice and tidy. And it's, and that's really, really important in what we're doing, because, we're a remote team. And this app is specific for bookkeepers and accountants. So those are our two main apps. And there's all sorts of other, Xero and all that sort of stuff that we use as well. But overall, how we deal with our process and how we bring on a new client now, and get them all set up is pretty automated, and simple. Although I say it's simple, I don't really do it. But it's all in place. I know that when someone accepts a proposal, everything slots into place. Everyone's got a little task to do. A lot of that's automated, and we're off to the races. So my role then is just making sure everyone's happy, clients happy, bookkeepers are happy, and then I can get on with my job, which is more sales and marketing, and also then making sure that we've got the capacity, and so that's my other role is the recruitment of those bookkeepers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a bit of a long-winded stretch. But anyway, there you go.
No, it's really important. I mean, I've heard Zoho is pretty cost-effective and really customizable.
Yeah.
Was there a process you went to in terms of determining what is the right software to use, and what was the decision, contributors to that?
Good question. I guess I'm going to say no. We didn't look
that
around.
One. Yeah.
We didn't look around, and you know what? I guess sometimes in business you get lucky, and I think with the Zoho we are lucky. I didn't realise how big a system it was, it's actually out of India, and they've got 100 million users. So I didn't realise it was that big. We went to a thing a couple of months ago, and it's the stuff they're doing and bringing out is really quite cool. So we were probably lucky in that we picked this one, but we were and we weren't. I got put onto the system through somebody I know through my BNI, which is a networking group, and I met this lady. She does this CRM software, and I liked her, and I just had a chat to her about Soho, and she sort of, I said, I know it would be good for us now, but what about when we've got 100 people, how's that going to work? And she's like, no problem. So, and I think that I don't think we're going to outgrow it anytime soon. So, so from that perspective, I didn't go out looking at a whole lot of different things. I was pretty comfortable with Zoho. I was pretty comfortable with, and the whole team. It wasn't just me that made that decision. It was our practice manager, and our operations manager, Rosie, as well. So it was a team decision to go with Zoho, but if I'm brutally honest, we didn't look at a lot of other things.
And I'll be curious in another thing, because you got a large team, and you don't seem particularly stressed, and you seem to have aspects of your business siloed. Like it's in some level people are doing their own thing, and you're not necessarily having to be too involved. You probably are, but what do you attribute to, I guess, being able to focus on sales and marketing and not get pulled into everything else?
Yeah, look, I think that that my strengths are around sales and marketing, lots of contacts within the chartered accounting environment where we get a lot of referral work, and recruitment. That's what I'm good at. And when I first got started, my accountant actually said to me, because he encouraged me to start the business as well. He said, you need to learn how to be a bookkeeper. And I'm like, and I actually did a course for which I didn't finish, because I didn't like, as soon as I become a bookkeeper, I'm chargeable, right? And I didn't really want to be chargeable. I knew what my strengths were, and I figured, hey, if I can bring in plenty of business and make sure we got good bookkeepers, then I can leave the bookkeeping work and running the bookkeeping team to somebody else, because Rosie had good skills in that space, right? And so and then our managers that we've got have got good skills in certain areas. So in a lot of ways, it's like, you've got, I think you've got to create an environment and put good people in the right place and let them do it, and I kind of learned that along the way. One of our bookkeepers, she's actually not with us anymore, but she set up our AML side of things, and I guess I was like, I thought it was taking too long, and I wasn't totally involved. And I said to her, look, don't worry, don't get too, and she turned back to me and said, look, do you want this done correctly or not? Because I'm going to do it right, or you can do a half-assed job. And I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough. I asked you to do a job, and then I bitch and moan that it's taking too long. But at the end of the day, and that was a good lesson for me, right? Because it's like, hey, if you've got good people, let them go. You can't. Sometimes you've got to rein them in if they're going down the wrong track. But she wasn't, and so at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what my role is to just create that environment, a good environment, and when we get new bookkeepers come in, they want to learn, and they want to learn how to be better bookkeepers, and we try to create that environment for them to be able to do that as well. So because we want them to be better bookkeepers, because then they do a better job for us, and it all feeds off one another. So that's why I don't try to do everything, right. I'm a pretty good delegator, I think, so the team are quite capable. So and it seems to work if you get out of their way. And I got right out of their way this year because I went away for 3 months, and the business kept going, so wasn't too bad.
Was there a celebration or existential crisis? Oh wait, they don't even need me.
Look, I was in the meeting. I had a meeting with the team once a week, but that was everything seemed to be going. There was a couple of things I had to deal with, and interestingly, none of it was sort of bookkeeping related. It was more client related, with a client not behaving badly, but yeah, I was ready to get back into work when I came back. That's for sure. I enjoy it, right? I love what I do, and I guess there's only so much golf and sitting on beaches that you can do, and so got that out of the system, and so I was pretty keen to get back into it when I got back, and so yeah, it was good.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying like, oh, I want to retire and then I'll do all this. Like, you just haven't had enough time off. It's so if you've got some purpose and you're contributing to the world in a meaningful way, then it's all right. But I'd be curious. So if you don't necessarily have a massive interest in becoming the best bookkeeper ever, or don't necessarily, a bit of it, maybe you're a generalist, how do you go about hiring someone and identifying who's good?
I'm not going to give you all my secrets on that, but I guess in a lot of ways, I think that people take recruitment of their bookkeepers too lightly, and often it's rough, because it's like, I've got all this work and now I need to get some people, so I'll just get the best person. And we try to keep ahead of the curve in regard to, we know that there's a lot of work coming in our pipeline, and it's going to be real busy in 2 months' time. And so I'm like, okay, and this is the conversation me and Rosie have on a regular basis. Okay, we need to go to the market again and find some more people, and so that we're ahead of the curve in regard to our workflow. So that, because I never want to say to a client, look, we can't do this because we haven't got the capacity. And so, so when we do go and do a recruitment process, interestingly, like a lot of things, it's a pretty boring. I'm not going to go through all the process we go through, but it's pretty boring, right? But you've got to do everything, right? Because we've tried it where we do everything that we normally do, and then we do the testing, because we put the candidates through a bookkeeping test, and then they bomb the test. But we go, well, everything else is right, so they must be good, and they must have just had a bad day at the test. So we'll take them on. And so then we take them on, And it turns out, no, they aren't any good. And so I guess we learned from that, doing that a couple of times, that, hey, we've got a process, stick to that process, and everything will be all right. But if you start deviating from that process, then that's when you start to have trouble. So yeah, we've got a pretty rigorous recruitment process when we take someone on board. And I guess one of the, we need them to be, have certain traits, and obviously they need to be, they don't need to be the world's greatest bookkeeper. In fact, they can be pretty green. They can have, 1 year's experience, but if they've got qualifications and those sort of things, and they're keen to learn, I think a lot of it comes down to attitude. And we recruit a lot on attitude. But there's a whole lot of other aspects that we also need. They can have the greatest attitude in the world, but if they don't know their debits from their credits, and they, are completely unorganised and show up to the meeting late, and don't return phone calls and all the rest of it, then that. Interestingly, though, those two things don't seem to go together very well. They've got a good attitude. They're really generally pretty good in other areas as well. But yeah, I think it's a really important to stick to your process when you're going through that recruitment process. Stick to what works, because I think there's lots of bookkeepers out there, and so we're never really short of finding decent people.
I'd be curious as well. Like, I don't think, at least my judgment is, a lot of people don't realize how much it takes to find an exceptional person. Like, if we treat it like sales, let's say you reach out to a cold audience and you convert 1%, it might not be that bad. You might have a higher conversion rate, but a lot of the exceptional people have jobs. People want to work with them, and you're actually selling to them. You're not sitting in the interview like, why should we hire you? So just to stretch people's, I guess, perception of what it takes, like, how many outreaches when you were recruiting, or how much does it take to actually get an exceptional operator? Is it like you got to meet them 4 times, you got to reach out to 50 people, you got to cold call, you got to chase up on them every 3 months? Like, what does it actually take?
In regard to bookkeepers, you mean?
Yeah, or any genre of recruitment, just can be bookkeepers specifically, but...
Oh, yeah. Recruitment's an interesting game, right? I got out of it for a reason. I got a little bit disillusioned with the industry, in that it's quite a transactional relationship, not like my business now is completely different, right? We bring a client on board, and then we've got clients that have been with us for 7, 8 years, right? 9 years in a couple of cases. So we want to, and that's what we want, right? We want to build a long-term relationship. Whereas recruitment, and I don't want to get offside with recruiters, but recruitment is very much a transactional thing, right? You put it, and I'm talking about permanent recruitment, maybe not so much contract recruitment, but it's very much you sell a person, and then you go away and you find another person, you sell another, because that's kind of what you're doing, right? It's maybe a crude way of putting it, but you find someone a job, and they pay you a decent whack for that. But like a lot of my clients were, they didn't really care where the candidate came from, and so what it became is, it became a race, and it became a race in regard to a recruiter would get a CV, and then rather than go through the due diligence with that candidate, go and meet them, find out what they wanted, find out what their goals were, and what would make a good fit for them within a chartered accounting environment, they'd just start flicking the CV out to everyone, right? And so by the time I've done my process, met the candidate, go, look, I think this, because I knew a lot of CA firms, I think this would be a good firm to look at, because all of these candidates, when I was recruiting, a good candidate in chartered accounting had options, right? And so this would be a good one. I don't think you'd like that one. So let's look at these ones first. Whereas a lot of my competitors were just getting the CV, maybe they meet them once and then they just flick out CVs to everyone. And so by the time I've done my process, which I can get done quickly in 3 days, maybe, by the time I then go and send out the CV to my clients and go, hey, have a look at this guy. I've met him. I think he's good. I think he'd fit your environment. They go, oh yeah, we already got that CV 2 days ago. And we're going to pay that other guy that just flipped the CV out the same as what they were going to pay me. And so I'm like, I got sick of that, right? And so that's why I kind of got out of that game. So yeah, we're possibly, I don't know, we're going down a different track here, but
Yeah.
recruitment to me was very, very transactional. And that's why I decided to go in a different direction. And also, I guess take the client, candidate decision making out of the client's hand, in that now we provide a service, right? If a client turns around to me and says, after we've gone through the process of meeting them, telling them how we work, they go, I'd like to meet your bookkeeper before we take you on. I'd be like, sorry, that's not how it works, right? I already know the bookkeeper's good. You don't need to worry about that. And if you're not happy, then sack me, right? But you're not getting the choice as to who your bookkeeper is, because I'm confident that our bookkeepers know what they're doing. They're well trained, they're supported, they're mentored, they're trained, everything like that. You don't need to worry about that. If you don't like our service, then sack us. But that doesn't happen very often, right? Because we've got a pretty good team. Rosie runs a pretty good ship in that respect, and so I've kind of taken away that process of the client being in control and saying, look, this is the service you're getting. It's not a temp service. You don't get to choose who you're going to have. This is who you're going to get. Now that said, there is times when client and bookkeeper clash on a personality level, right? Not on a skill level, on a personality level. Then we'll go, okay, not working. Let's change it around. And so sometimes that is the case, but it doesn't happen that often, right? And that comes back to, I think, our recruitment process, in that I think we get that right. I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, because you can never get it right 10 times out of 10, because you're dealing with human beings, right? I think we're quite good at recruiting the right people, but we aren't ever going to get it right 100% of the time, just for that simple fact.
How do you deal with that 1 out of 10 moments,
That's the most stressful part of my job, is working through that process. Often the bookkeeper knows and sometimes understands, but again, that is a process that I get all these jobs, right? I get when we've got to sack a client, when we've got to get rid of a contractor, that all falls on me. So that's my other I don't know if it's a skill level, but that tends to be the job that I get. But look, also it happens quickly. It happens within the first month or two, right? And often it's like, hey, look, this is our culture, and we are a team, even though we all work remotely, and that person's not really fitting in with that team, or just clashing with other bookkeepers, and that's when we know that from the whole team perspective, that's when we know we've got to get that person out. And I think it's that person is not enjoying it either. So often it's a mutual thing. They realise that, hey, it's not working, because look, this is when you come and work in a business like ours, it's quite different from working as a single bookkeeper in a single client, and that's all you do. We're asking people to juggle multiple jobs, juggle families, kids, while at home, husbands. And I say that because our teams, I should say this in a podcast, but our team is all women.
You're diverse,
right?
mate. You're ticking the box.
Well, yeah. Well, some could argue that that we don't employ enough men, right? But look, that's the way it is, I guess. The bookkeeping environment is traditionally dominated by women. And look, I don't know, maybe I just think that they work well. And it's not that we have interviewed blokes, but we just haven't got across the line with any. And I guess also it's the further we go down the track, the harder that might become. But I'm sure that there's a man out there that will one day join the team and be able to come and have a beer with me on a Friday. But hey, that will happen. I'm sure of it.
Do you think, like, when you bring someone on as a new staff member, is there indications of whether they'll be good or bad early on, and what does that sort of look like?
Well, that really comes back to their attitude, right? We don't care if they're not, like I said before, we don't really care if they're not, at sort of rosy level bookkeeping, because, and in some ways it's better that they're not, because then we can, and we do take on people that have got very limited experience, but they've done a course through the Career Academy or someone like that. And again, it comes back to that attitude. If they've got the right attitude, then we'll train them, right? One of our managers, she started with us she was working as an early childhood teacher. She'd done bookkeeping for her father's business, which was an early childhood centre. And she wanted to learn how to be a bookkeeper. So she'd done a course. She came to us and said, hey, look, I would like, and she had, very little experience. This is 7 years ago. Rosie took her under her wing, and she developed amazingly, right, over that period. And now she's one of our managers, and super good at what she does, right? And so, and that's kind of because we've trained her in our ways, and so that creates a really good bookkeeper. So in a lot of ways, getting them with not so much knowledge is a good thing, because we can teach them that way. Sometimes if you bring them in and they are the finished product, or they think they're the finished product, that's when you can have troubles, because they're like, I'm doing it my way and not your way. And so we really kind of need them to do it our way, or it might be the highway.
Well, I mean, it was true. Like, we used to train and recruit salespeople, and if they've got a full cup, like, student mentality is the biggest. Like, for example, if you had, let's say I take on a really high performer and we run meetings and they don't take any notes, that teaches all the new people that come on that it's not that valuable. You don't need to learn this in order to be successful. So that student mentality is huge. Do you, when you onboard someone, do you, like, as a staff member, is there key things they need to go through? Like, do they need to be working alongside someone? Do you have to have this many touch points? Do you have, like, achievement stages and stuff like that?
We have an induction process, and so, shows them all the stuff that we use, how we operate, and there's also a lot of learning in that early stage in regard to working from home, what you need, equipment wise, how to account for your time. All of those things we cover off in our induction, but each bookkeeper also has a manager that is kind of like their mentor, and so there is a process with that. There's a process for everything that we do.
It
pretty
sounds
much.
like it, yeah.
So yeah, but there is a process for bringing on new people and making sure that they progress like they want to, and so on. So yeah.
And what's your take on, because my assumption was when I take on a salesperson, they'd want progression, want to be a leader, but a lot don't. But then the challenge is, like, if let's say our business is making 2 million and we want to get to 10 million, we might not have people in the organization that have the skill set to take us to that next level. So what's your take on hiring a manager with experience versus building one up?
Don't know. Never done it.
Never done it. Yeah.
Look, the whole manager thing is pretty new to us. And so we're sort of, we're our managers have, I guess that whole job description of a manager, because Rosie was kind of doing everything, right? And so with the last few years growing quite a bit, that's where we've brought in the managers. So, and all the managers have come from within the team. And so, and it's been a challenge for them to change from being a doer to being a manager, that's for sure. But we're sort of getting, like, like every business, everything's evolving all the time, and you've got to, right? Like all this AI stuff that's coming down the pipe, I mean, if we're not embracing that, and if we're not implementing that sort of stuff, then we're going backwards. And I'll just had caught up with a client this morning who came on board with us 8 months ago maybe, and it was a big job, but it's taken probably 6 months to settle into a really good pattern. And our processes, and we've put in some AI or machine learning type technology in there that's really improved that particular process within his business. And he's super happy with all of that, so we're doing that job in a lot less time than what the permanent person was doing it. But the other thing that he liked is the fact that there's always someone there to cover what if one of our team are down, there's always someone else there to pick it up. And you don't get that with a permanent employee. The permanent employee is 42, 44 weeks of the year, depending on how sick they are. And then those other, 8, 10 weeks, you've got to figure out how you're going to do your bookkeeping, or it just doesn't get done, or whatever, or someone in the team has to cover. So we make sure that we're covering all that sort of stuff. And that's part of the service that we're selling, right? And so we're not selling just one person, we're selling a whole team, That's a complete tangent from the question you asked, I know. But...
Oh, we've got this normal, mate. This is our podcast role, especially with the chaos in the background. So I was talking to a lady in the bookkeeping space, and she was saying about the pros and cons of having a bookkeeper in-house versus remote. What's your take on, is there ever a point where you should have a permanent bookkeeper, and what stage that is in the business?
Yeah, for sure. We've recommended to clients sometimes that we think that it's probably time that you need to take this in-house, because either the job's getting too big for us, or the cost is getting too much for them, right? Because we're not, obviously you can employ someone a lot cheaper per hour than you can employ us, but it's also about efficiency with us. We can often do a job where, a number of occasions, client's got a full-time accountant, right? We go in there and we go, this was a 20 to 25 hour a month job. It's not a full-time job. And the client's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, that's what it is. And I guess our skill is we look at a job and go, this is how long it should take. Whereas if you say to someone, here's the job, and you've got 40 hours to do it, funnily enough, 40 hours later, the job's done, and sometimes the job's not done very well either. The client I was talking about before, where we've implemented the AI stuff, he's probably paying much the same as what he's paying as a permanent person, but he's getting a lot better information. And it's about accuracy as much as it is about efficiency, because people are running a business and they want to make sure that they've got good information to run that business. So yeah, again, I've probably gone completely off track there.
I'm just curious of pricing too, because I mean, it's from what I can gather, bookkeepers seem to be hourly, and then you're disincentivized to be exceptional.
Mm.
Like, how do you juggle that? And have you thought about pricing and innovation in that space?
No, we charge hourly most of the time, and we do some fixed pricing as well, and that's look, I guess it's each to their own. I think with what we do is sometimes complex and it's up and down. Sometimes, and the client sometimes you start out doing one thing and the client wants you to do more or less or whatever, and so sometimes it's just easier to do to do it that way. It's not as open as closed as what perhaps chartered accounting is, where there's a lot of fixed fees, and it's because chartered accounting is probably a bit easier to deal with in that respect. And so I can see where that works for them. But, I guess what we always say to people is, look at what you're paying per month and per year, not what you're paying per hour, right? Because I have a lot of people come to me and go, what's your hourly rate, right? And we tell them what our hourly rate is and they go, I can get it done for half of that. I'm like, good. Go and get it done for half of that. And like I just talked to a client or a prospect yesterday, and he's like, I'm paying these people this. And I said, well, we're double that. But I said, just from talking to you, they're taking twice as many hours as we're going to take. And I think at the end of the day, that job will probably do for less money, but more efficiently, So, and that's the difference between having someone in-house, I think, and someone like ourselves, where we're also a growing business. If our bookkeepers want more work, we go, yeah, we've got plenty of work. You just be the best bookkeeper and do the best job, and we'll give you more work. And don't worry about trying to take it a 4-hour-a-week job and make it into an 8-hour-a-week job because you don't have enough work. That's not us. We don't operate like that. We just want to be efficient and get the job done and move on to the next one.
How do you juggle that? Like, because you've got all these employees that got to feed themselves and got bills and stresses, and then you're making money from hours worked, and then there's some level of in that control of how when they need those hours worked. You know what I mean? Like, how do you juggle that? They've got families to feed, but then you're not 100% sure. Like juggling the hourlies across all your different employees.
Our work's consistent, right? So they get consistent hours. They're not working 5 hours one week and 40 hours the next week. It's pretty consistent with on a month by month basis as to what they're doing. And it depends on what they want, how many hours they want. Some of them want more hours, some of them want less. So because what appeals to them about what we do is we can fit it around your lifestyle. If you want a certain amount of hours and not full time, then you do that, and then you've got your family and all the rest of it to fit into the other side of that. So we do need our bookkeepers to give us a certain amount of hours every week to make it worthwhile for us. And worthwhile to them, I guess, as well. So because we put a lot of time and effort and training and support into them, so we need to get a bit of a certain amount of hours out of them. So, that's that there is, a lot of our people are contractors, so they understand that it does sometimes fluctuate. But they know that, and they sign up to that, and they're happy with that, because they know that if they want to make more money, they can too. But if they want to go, hey, I don't want to do as much, then they can button back on that as well, and we can be flexible in that respect most of the time.
Do you think the fact that your business is remote is the reason why autonomy and freedom of hours and having contractors or is it just the nature of bookkeeping? Like what led to that?
I think more and more bookkeepers are going to this model. We've always been this model of contractors, but that said, we've got a lot more employees as well, because all our managers and practice manager and all that are all employees. So because we need some consistency. There's a difference between an employee. You can tell an employee that they've got to do this. You can't tell a contractor that you've got to do this, right? Because an employee is like, this is your job. This is what you need to do. And understand, we're not, you've got to do this. It's very much team effort, but our contractors don't have to do something if they don't want to. So it's about, but that said, we've got one contractor or a couple of contractors that have been with us 7-8 years. So they tend to like it. They like the environment. They like the fact that bookkeeping is a lonely job, right? Nowadays, because you can do it all remotely. And so being part of a wider team is really important to our team. There's other people to talk to and get advice from, and that's also benefits our clients, because if you've got a bookkeeper that doesn't have access to all that team, then and they've got a problem, then what our bookkeepers can do is plug into the team and go, hey, I've got this issue. Anyone dealt with that before? I can figure it out, but I reckon it'll take me 2 or 3 hours. And someone in the team will invariably come back and go, oh, yeah, simple, do this, that, the job's done in half an hour, as opposed to, letting someone else figure it out and taking 3 hours and charging the client for that. So that's a benefit that the clients get from a larger team like ourselves.
And one of the things I worry about remote work, because that's probably what I would do. Like, I've had employees outside of New Zealand, and I worry about community. So like I can sit on calls with them, and when we have questions, we just jump on and we're like working together and that. How do you think about building a team culture and a sense of community with a business that's remote?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because like I said, bookkeeping and by nature nowadays is very you can do the work remotely, so it's a lonely job. But our team are all New Zealand based, and that's important to us, because we do get together probably 3 or 4 times a year in person, and that's really good. Our team really enjoy that. A couple of times it's not work related. It's pretty much a lunch or Christmas. We just had our Christmas thing, so it's a bit of fun, and everyone gets to know everyone else, and that's good, because they might get to meet someone that they've actually known online, spoken to, seen on online, but never actually met them face to face. But they feel like that, and they have known them for maybe 12 months. So it's important, I think, that the personal connection, and all of our managers' meetings, or most of our managers' meetings, are in person. So, and when we go and meet clients, we like to do that in person. And hence the reason we like our bookkeepers to be in New Zealand. And that's because the clients we attract like that too. There's a big model where you outsource it overseas, and that that's the way some people choose to go, and that's fine. It's not our model. We feel that there's a pretty big market for bookkeepers that are local. And hey, I'm a Kiwi. I like supporting local. There's lots of ways that our team keep together and keep that. We're Bookkeeper of the Month, and newsletters go out monthly, and shout outs for the team, and everyone says, "Oh, congratulations," and da da da. So there's a lot of chat on our chat boards and stuff between the team. Some more than others, and so that's sort of. But it is important that we. And I think the other big thing that's helped us in that area is our practice manager. She's really good at making sure that regular content and information going out to the bookkeepers, and all that sort of stuff. So, she's been instrumental in a lot of ways in our business, in growing it and helping with our processes and being able for us now to just focus on scaling it up and sort of going from there.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, mate. We're all done.
All done. Okay. Easy.